Hello chess friends and welcome to the Art of Chess channel and welcome back to the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour finals in 2022. We're now in the last round of this beautiful chess event and we're following now the beautiful game between Jan-Krzysztof Duda and Magnus Carlsen. So usually this will be the derby of the event, usually this will be really the game for the throne, but now Magnus Carlsen had a clear situation because yesterday he already secured the win in the event with a round to spare, which is really incredible, which is really wild with such an elite competition. Magnus Carlsen really destroyed all of them and is now the winner of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour event now, but also of the whole Meltwater Champions Chess Tour season. So incredible performance again by Magnus. Congratulations for winning a new event. But we're starting now with a beautiful game, as I said, between Jan-Krzysztof Duda and Magnus Carlsen. Maybe it's not really now intense battle, but here you see a beautiful opening choice by Magnus Carlsen. He played now really a wild opening line. He played now the so-called Beefeater variation of the Modern Defense, which is really wild, but it's not a rare case that we see Magnus Carlsen trying a wild opening. I remember also this beautiful game where he won his game with the Alekhine defense against Fabiano Caruana. Many times we have seen Magnus Carlsen even playing the first move H4, A3 and similar stuff. So he's trying something out. Many times it's perfectly fine. Many times also it goes wrong, but Magnus Carlsen is really a creative player. He can basically play whatever he wants to play. So let's see now this beautiful Beefeater variation. Let's see what is this actual opening here. Jan-Krzysztof Duda opened with the move c4. We have g6 by Magnus Carlsen. We have now the move d4 and after bishop to g7. Here e4 was played by Jan and he's now getting a beautiful central control with his pawns. Magnus still delays this move with the knight, plays now first of all the move d6 and he's trying maybe to be flexible here. You can still go into Benoni structures with the move c5 or you can play knight to f6, maybe e5 going into King's Indian structure. So still really a beautiful flexibility here in black's position. Now comes knight to c3 and here after move c5 Magnus is going into a more Benonish sort of line because what you can do of course is to pass through or you can play now d takes c5. If d takes c5 happens, then of course we play bishop to c3. This will be now the so-called pterodactyl variation, and here after b takes c3 now you can even play d takes c5, simply trading off more pieces, and of course you can also trade off the queens maybe after queen to d8. Okay, white has the bishop pair, but I think this messed up pawn structure is also something that black can attack in the later stage of the game. So this is, in my opinion, also playable here for black. So in the continuation after move c5 here, Jan pulled off now the move d5. He has now really good central control, and now Magnus plays really this beautiful Beefeater variation with the move bishop to c3. Look at this. After b takes c3, in my opinion, this is really risky what Magnus is doing, because you not giving up your dark square bishop in when you have this fianchetto, but it's a line that is actually playable if you know what you're doing. And I've seen this line many times. I've played it also several times, not with a huge success of course, because it's really risky. Now you have to know what you do, and Magnus plays now first of all the move e5. He's trying to now have really a good control on dark squares, because you're giving up the dark square bishop in an early stage of the game. Now you have to secure the dark squares. You have to play something like b6, you want to play f6, knight to e7, maybe bishop to d7. So you're trying really to be compact on dark squares. That's now the most important thing. So we have now bishop to d3 by Jan. If you play d takes e6 here, if you may be trying to open the position, notice that you have lost now your main strength. From white's perspective, you have the space advantage. If you play, of course, here the d takes e6, black will simply continue with bishop to e6. And okay, maybe you can continue the pressure with bishop to f4, hitting the pawn on d6. But actually, here black doesn't have to even react. Can simply secure the knight here on c6. And if you take queen to a5, and this is already also a weird game for white, rook to d8 is going to happen. So here black has, I think, good chances in the game. So even if you try maybe to take out the pawn with the move bishop to d6, now again knight to f6, normal development. Even if you develop again with e5 attacking the knight, look at this again, this motif queen to a5 is very dangerous. Now even if you cover yourself, look at this, knight to e4 is going to happen. If you try here queen to c2, again knight to e4 is a possibility, because you cannot take, you get destroyed here on c3. So even bishop to f5 is an opportunity. So it's really not a pleasant game here for white. So you see many things can go wrong in this Beefeater variation. If you, for instance, take out the pawn on e6 here in the continuation now after move e5, Here, Jan-Krzysztof Duda simply developed the bishop to d3, and Magnus continues now with the normal defensive strategy, being now compact ready on dark square. So we have now f4, which is a normal choice, of course, here by Jan. He's trying to open now the position. He has the bishop pair. He has to now destroy black on dark squares. He's trying to get the dark square bishop, of course, into the game. Magnus goes e takes f4, bishop to f4, queen to h4, hitting the king, of course. You have to now react. You can play g3 or bishop to g3. In the game, bishop to g3 was played, but now queen to e7. And this is a must move here for Magnus, because he has to secure now the e5 breakthrough. In the continuation, white could try knight to f3, kingside castling, rook to e1, and then e5. This is a really destroying move for black. So black needs now really to be compact around the square e5. Never allow white to make progress around the square in a good way. You can of course sacrifice something, but if black is allowing maybe really some activities around the square e5, black could really get destroyed in an early stage of the game. So here we have knight to f3, we have knight to h6, and now e5 immediately. And in my opinion, this was simply too rushed here by Jan-Krzysztof Duda. This was not the way to go. He should have simply proceeded here with the move queen to d2, attacking the knight. Now, of course, the knight has to jump here on on g4, and of course, black still has the powerful control around the square e5. But now, after kingside castling knight to e5, notice that actually this structure here is okay. You're keeping yourself compact in the center of the board, but still I kind of don't like this position, because you're so vulnerable here on dark squares. The f file is open. Maybe we can even search for new opportunities for the light square bishop. So in my opinion, white should be much better. But here e5 was played by Jan, and he rushed simply into the attack. Magnus Carlsen accepts now the challenge, plays now knight to e5, knight to e5, d takes e5. Okay, this is not an optimal position, of course, for black. White still has this beautiful bishop pair, but in my opinion, something went wrong already here for Jan-Krzysztof Duda. Now he castles, Magnus also castles. We have queen to d2, hitting the knight, knight to f5, bishop to f5, bishop to f5, and here Jan relies on his strength, that he has this dark square bishop, that Magnus Carlsen has still his problems here on dark squares. And okay, maybe this is a good plan, but Magnus Carlsen still, I think, can secure the position with the move f6, rook to f7, rook to d8, rook to d6, securing really the position on this dark square. So in my opinion, simply, as I said, too rushed attack here by Jan-Krzysztof Duda. If you ask yourself the question, what happens if rook to f5 happens? This is not working, because after g takes f5, you can maybe attack the position, but now with f6, king to h8, queen to f7, this is again a playable line for black. Black is defending this position for sure. When we move the queen to f7, maybe we can even play the move f4 here, hitting the bishop, getting a really nice compact structure. So this is not possible here to sacrifice the exchange for the bishop. So this is not working. So that's why for bishop to f5, we have a rook to f2. Jan is continuing the pressure on the f file. We have now f6. Magnus keeps the position in the center now compact. We have rook to f1. Of course, continue the pressure, as we said, on the f file. But now with rook to d8, very important now move by Magnus. Really nice defensive move, because he's not allowing maybe this pawn to be pushed to d6. When that happens, you could face really annoying passer here on the d file. So in the continuation, we have now queen to e3, hitting the pawn on c5. Magnus doesn't want to have such a dependency for this pawn on c5, so that's why he fixes the pawn with the move b6. We have bishop to h4. Jan is continuing now the pressure here around the square f6. He's trying ideas of g4, maybe bishop to g4, then you could lose here the battle around the square f6, so that's why here rook to d6. Magnus is protecting this idea. If g4 happens now, still we can take, and we would have this pawn protected 3 times by this rooks, but also by the queen here on e7. So that's why here h3, Jan is preparing now to move g4. Magnus simply retreats. It's not allowing here white to gain some time, white to gain some tempi against the bishop. But here rook to f3 was played by Jan-Krzysztof Duda, and Magnus simply keeps the position glued together, keeps now all of his pieces really compact like a hedgehog. Now he's really is having here a good defensive structure. So we have now g4. Jan is really trying here desperately to open the position. He's trying now the idea g5, f takes g5 wouldn't be possible because of the tension around the square f7. Now Magnus protects this rook, because if now, for instance, g5 happens, and that was actually here Jan-Krzysztof Duda's move, then you have f5, and you have here a solid structure. You have blocked out the potential attack here by white, and also you have blocked out here the dark square bishop. A better move instead of this move g5 was actually to go bishop to g3. Then this g5 would come with the direct threat. G5, if you played an f5, then you could lose here the pawn on e5. So this was maybe much better here for Jan to prepare this move g5, but he rushed again a little bit into the attack, played now g5, and now from this point on I think Magnus has a much better position. He has now defended this position, he created the blockade, he has now solid structure in the center of the board. The bishop is still flexible, the bishop still can come into the game, so Magnus has, I think, here completely winning endgame here. So in the continuation, rook to e1, here Jan is continuing the pressure on the e file. Magnus advances the pawn, of course, e4, bishop to g3, hitting the rook, rook to d8. We have rook to f2, bishop to d7, trying to develop the piece, but now Jan uses this moment and attacks now the rook. We have rook to e8, we have now queen to f4. Even if you try maybe to play h4 immediately to create some kind of a attack here, it's not such a huge problem. We'll simply reroute the bishop. You can maybe reroute the bishop to f4, but again, as I said, it's not such a huge problem here for Magnus. Magnus has still opportunities to get the pieces into the game. Maybe he's now a little bit on the defensive side, but if something gets cleared, then this bishop is coming into the game, the rooks will come into the game, and we have to say Magnus has here two connected passers, so it's also from an endgame's perspective really a nice structure here for black. So as I said, after rook to e8, we have queen to f4 here by Jan. We have bishop to c8, attacking now the bishop. Here bishop to d6 was played by Duda. Even if you play d6, this wouldn't be so good. Many of us, I think, would play this move, but actually this is a bad really choice for white because you're opening up the long diagonal for the light square bishop. Now queen to d7 is going to happen, bishop to b7, and maybe later we can play queen to c6, then maybe some ideas of e3, liberating now the long diagonal for the light square bishop and the queen, and then you could get really destroyed on light squares here. So white opened also some spaces in front of the king, so that's why, in my opinion, d6 is simply not working. So that's why bishop to d6, here Jan gets another tempo against the queen has to retreat, and now here Jan simply retreats here on a very beautiful square on e5, and he's trying maybe also to reroute here the bishop to f6. In the continuation now, rook to e5, beautiful move here by Magnus Carlsen. He sacrifices now the exchange. He's saying now, I have enough, I think. He's saying the only weaknesses here that I have here are on dark squares. Now I'm getting rid of your main attacker of dark squares, which is of course the dark square bishop. After queen to e5, Magnus picks up another pawn, which comes with a check, and he has now 3 pawns and a bishop for the rook, which is in my opinion simply too much to handle here for white. This is in my opinion completely winning endgame here again for Magnus. So here rook to g2, Jan is covering, of course. We have queen to f6. Here Magnus doesn't mind to maybe go even into an endgame, because if the game is simplified enough, if the threats are not so intense, then of course having these 3 connected passers, having the bishop that supports the potential progress, having the rook here is simply enough here to win the game. So that's why here Jan is trying to keep the queens on the board. This is now the only chance for him to make something in this game. Queen to b8, rook to f8, protecting now the bishop, but also indirectly hitting the queen now on b8. We have now queen to f4. If you play now the queen to a7, if you pick up this pawn here, you lose also some other pawns. Queen to c3 is going to happen. Look at this, the rook is hanging, the pawn on c4 is weak, then also the d5 is weak. Magnus still can make progress here with these 2 pawns, so you don't have time to pick up just one lonely pawn here on the a file. The a file is also far away from the action. The action is actually here in the center of the board, so that's why here Jan he realized that he went wrong here with this line and reroutes now the queen to f4, where it at least protects now the center of the board. So after queen to f4, we have bishop to a6. Magnus is just attacking now the pawns further. We have h4. Here Jan is trying to at least open the position somehow with this beautiful rook activity, but Magnus simply grabs another pawn. We have bishop to c4. We have now d6, trying maybe to play rook to d1 and passing the and pushing the pawn further. We have now queen to c3, hitting the rook. We have rook to e3, and now with queen to d4, again Magnus Carlsen pins the rook. Is not allowing here some great activities by some pieces. So we have now h5. We have bishop to f7. Magnus is now trying to keep everything compact, although the better choice is actually to go king to f7, getting out of this g file attack here. Maybe a tiny little inaccuracy by Magnus. He allowed here this kind of a continuation after king to h2, rook to d8, here rook to g3. The problem is now you are always vulnerable with this idea to play queen to f5. You have to get out of the g file. That was maybe, as I said, maybe a tiny little inaccurate move by Magnus, but still this is a much better position for black. In the continuation after rook to g3, Magnus picks up now the pawn on d6, hopes maybe that Jan trades off now the queens and simplifies the game. But now Jan of course continues with this idea, queen to f5 you cannot take, of course, because of this g file attack. But okay, Magnus now includes new defenders into the game. We have now h takes g6, h takes g6. The problem is now you cannot play rook to g6. You would love, of course, to play that, maybe even to sacrifice something just in order to open the position, maybe even pick up the queen, but this is not possible. Magnus pinned now the rook to g3. The king has to move, and now Magnus has time to get the king into the defense, and this is now again a solid here defense by black. So in the continuation rook to h3, we have queen to e6. So Magnus is again trying to simplify the game by trading off more pieces. Here Jan is trying queen to h5. Controlling further the h file. He's trying some attacks, but now a beautiful move by Magnus. Queen takes h3, queen takes h3, and now after rook to h8, the game is simplified enough. Now Magnus Carlsen is going into the endgame, and here Duda has to react. We have queen to h8, king takes h8, and this is now completely winning. This is now favorable for black, especially because of these three passers here. Okay, they're not passers, two pass pawns we have here, but we have also this two, so it's simply too much material that black gained so far in the game. So it's now completely winning game here for Magnus again. So we have rook to d2, we have bishop to c4, rook to d7. Here Magnus simply grabs one pawn, Duda grabs also another pawn, and now Magnus is simply pushing these pawns further. Here Jan goes for this pawn on b6. Here Magnus goes to c2. Now the rook is always overloaded to the defense of the potential promotion on c1. Magnus now plays simply e3, not allowing the king maybe to come on f2 here, which is really important. Here Jan played the check. Magnus goes further with the king. We have g5, king to f3, and now a very nice move here by Magnus. He plays now the move e2, and you see now with king to f2, both of white's pieces, the king and the rook, are always stuck to the defense of this potential promotions on the c file and e file. And you know, when Magnus is reaching a favorable endgame, Magnus is not letting this slip game. He's simply having now completely winning game. So he's trying now to include, of course, the king into the game. With this passer, actually he could win the endgame here. So he's trying now g4. We have king to e1, g3. We have rook takes c2. Here Jan tried something, but it's actually not working, because after bishop to c2, king to e2, now Magnus Carlsen, of course, saw the immediately winning move. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now here the best continuation for black. It's completely winning, so try it out. Maybe you can solve this mini puzzle at the end of the game. And after that move, Jan-Krzysztof Duda immediately resigned. So okay, take your time. Okay, many moves are working, and here Magnus saw a beautiful line with bishop to d1. Whatever happens, you're losing the game. If you take, of course, the king is simply too far away from the action, will simply promote a new queen. If you play something after king to f1, then you have this one, bishop to f3. We're going to play, and the king cannot approach to the pawn on g3. Both of these pieces, the bishop and the pawn, are controlling these four important squares here. The king cannot come closer. Now you just move the king further and you promote the pawn on the g file for sure. So incredible game by Magnus. So he pulled off this pterodactyl variation of the modern defense, then he went into the so-called Beefeater variation. Incredible opening. In my opinion, still a risky choice. Don't try it out if you don't have it prepared really in a deep way. Magnus can, of course, as we said in the beginning, play whatever Magnus wants to play, and he won out this beautiful endgame, and is, of course, as we said in the beginning, also the winner of the beautiful Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Maybe I'll pull off the pterodactyl here in some blitz bullet games just as a surprise, but still, I would not dare to play it maybe in the tournaments or something. Still a risky choice by Magnus. If you want to see more games by Magnus Carlsen and maybe by some other top grandmasters from this event, check out my coverage so far. Here are some links of some games that we have analyzed before, and If you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.